So this is going to be our first of two research knowledge and skill builders on REDCap, and we have the guidance and expertise of Rick Angeles and Steve Dragos taking us through this. In another month, we'll do a part 2 on this. So as you're watching and listening, we want to hear some feedback from you at the end about what else you want to know, what do you want to know next, and we can make sure we answer those questions in the next session. Also, of course, we follow up with an evaluation feedback form, and that's another way to let us know what else you want to hear more about. Okay, and we have someone online, which is great, and we can get started.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Yeah, what Laura said, because REDCap can be quite complex, so what we'll do today is be more basic, and then if you're thinking while we're doing this for more complex things, maybe for yourself, it'd be good to know for our next skill builder to get more in-depth and details. So yeah. Okay, so we have 3 learning objectives for today's skill builder session. Really want to get you guys to understand how REDCap can be used, mainly for building databases and also for surveys. I think the survey section will do probably the next skill builder. For today will be more of a basic kind of building databases. The second one would be identify some basic functions. I'll go through a basic demo online to show you how everything looks and how it works. And then the third will be where you can find more information, specific, tailored to what you could potentially be using for your own projects. Okay, so REDCap, so it was developed by a group of researchers from Vanderbilt University. So it was actually developed by researchers. So so the interface is, it works well for research projects. So what it is, it says there, a secure web-based application for building and managing online databases and surveys. So the big strength of it is that you can use REDCap from anywhere, online and offline, and obviously it's used for data capturing. So it's really powerful. That's a really powerful tool for a lot of research projects. If you need to use it on sites or off-site, etc. It has built-in capabilities to move the data after capture into forms that you need for analysis. So stats, SPSS, SAS, R as well. And it has a whole load of advanced features, which we'll get into over the next 2 sessions: surveys, data collection tools, etc. So REDCap has what's called a REDCap Consortium. So the DFM is a member of that consortium, and there are a couple thousand members of this consortium worldwide. So we are users in that consortium, and then I know they have annual conferences, retreats, get-togethers where the IT consortium members will meet together and discuss what's been happening over the past year, and can use to improve the data capturing, suggest and innovate. And then the development team on the other side, on REDCap, can make those changes. And it's kind of been going on for quite a while now. And yeah, I think it's on version 9 now we have in the DFM. So it's constantly updating and changing over time.
Yeah, and in addition to that, you can also email them and contact them if there are a few improvements that you want to have in REDCap. Like I've contacted them about questions that I wanted to ask, and also some improvements, for example, the mobile app that we encountered. So they said they'll work on it. So there are things that if you have suggestions to them, email them.
Yeah, I know Chris also works as a liaison for them, for us, for our department as well. So for DFM, we have three options. So we have what's called a sandbox, where anybody can go on and just play around with the program and test things out. And then we have, if you want it for building projects, we have two options. So we have a DFM-wide instance where it's shared between all faculty and staff. So it's a specific domain name, a specific URL. It's really meant for smaller projects, just to go on. If you don't have, it's not a large project, you're just doing one short project. That's a good instance to do. That's no cost to that because it's already covered, I guess, under other costs. Chris would know more about that. But for larger projects, it's recommended to have its own specific instance. I know there's a couple in the department that do that. The ICANN ACP study, which I might get into a bit later, has its own specific dedicated URL to that project. So people will log in, end users or whatever will log into that specific URL. And that can't be accessed by anybody else. And there's the fee to that. So these are some options within a department. And this information is in a SOP that was created last year on REDCap, which you can find on the shared drive.
Okay, for the specifications, there's a lot and even a lot more. So these are just a few of them we've listed. You can create data forms online. It's very flexible. You can do whatever data types you prefer in terms of the data forms. You can do web surveys, the similar things that you do with SurveyMonkey and what were we using?
Lime Survey.
Lime Survey, yeah. Whatever you do with Lime Survey and SurveyMonkey, you can do it here. It's even more customizable with all the introduction and also the response to the participants. It's even more flexible there. You can even schedule the surveys the way you want. You don't have to monitor. You can just schedule for this participant. I want to schedule this month, next month, and so on. So it's very flexible. Activity logging is also one of the things that you can have with REDCap. So for example, if there's something that you found like in the survey, the results of this participant changed, but I don't remember anybody changing it. So you can actually look who edited the responses to the participants, because for some cases, multiple users can have access to a certain survey. PDF, blank or completed form. So you can print out the questionnaire in a PDF form. So it's going to be like a blank form. Sometimes you can use it for your survey if you don't have any 3G or Wi-Fi, or you didn't have the mobile app ready. So you can print it off, use the blank forms. And also for the completed surveys, you can print it out per participant if you want to share it in certain ways. Data import and export. So you can export data that if you already have a specific set of Excel spreadsheet that you want to import and then proceed using REDCap, you can do that easily. And you can also export data, like Steve said, in whatever format that you want. But at the same time, you can also import and export questionnaires. So if you already created a questionnaire and you want to create a new survey using that same questionnaire, you can export that first and then import it to another questionnaire. De-identified data export import. So you can set a few data, the variables of the participants that you consider as identifiers. And if you want to share the data to a group of people with de-identified data, then you can export that way. User management. So there are many users sometimes for a specific survey. You can limit their access. For example, in the CHAP program that we have the nurses and the volunteers. The volunteers only have access to one form, but the nurses have access to all the forms. So you can do it, you can manage the users that way. Data access groups. So if you're working with multiple sites and you want all the surveys to go into one database, you can do that and allow each site only access to their own data. So that's where you use the data access groups. Custom reports. You can create reports there. For example, you can select the variables that you want to know, how many males, how many females, how many have we enrolled so far. You can create those. It doesn't come out the prettiest, but it's something that's regular there and you can always look at quickly. Data quality queries. So for example, if you found that certain calculations were done incorrectly, you can actually check that and then apply it to the entire system. And also if you want to look at missing data and so on, you can do that quickly with REDCap. API interface, custom programs. That is when you want to communicate your database to what do you call it? EMRs. So that's the REDCap has that capability. I haven't had the chance of using that capability, but that's actually available, and we can actually communicate all our database and forms or some of our findings to, for example, Oscar, if we want to. Branching skip logic, so that's probably common. Everybody uses branching logic for databases. Format, export, and PHI field restriction is still similar to de-identified, so you can just set certain fields as personal health information and other people won't be able to see it based on their user rights. Okay, this is some of it is repetitive, but emphasis on a few things. Online and offline capabilities. REDCap used to be just an online database, but they've now developed the offline, the mobile app to a good quality enough that you can actually use it to do data collection. There are still some flaws. I've experienced some flaws with regards to the data collection, like especially when you start using data access groups in the apps. There's some problems with the syncing. But if in terms of just data collection with the offline database forms, that's fine. You have all the usual database blings, like different data types, calculated fields, keep patterns, visual analog scale, data upload, and so on. There are already built questionnaires that are available in the library. So if you're developing your own forms, for example, if you want to include the EQ5D or the quality of life questionnaire, you can actually get those questionnaires and import it to your own forms. And it's available already. There's a list of forms that's already built in the REDCap library. Calendar scheduling, as I mentioned, you can schedule certain surveys to go out anytime. User permissions, I mentioned also. Data quality system, data access group, and detail. Those things. Okay, so uses in DFM research. So using this. In CHAP Philippines, what we're using right now is the mobile app, because the problem in the Philippines, in the community settings, is that they don't have regular access to Wi-Fi or 3G. So they're using the mobile app, and then they sync the database into our web-based format, and the city health office collects and reviews the results that's been collected. In CHAP, we're using the online version. So basically, what we have are volunteers collecting data and then supervised by the research nurse. And it's organized by buildings using different user rights. So, for example, as I mentioned, volunteers can only access one form. The nurses can access multiple forms. And within those forms, you can also limit their access to certain information. In CP at Home, we're using a mix of mobile app and online versions depending on whether or not they have 3G access. Like, for example, in one of our sites, they have consent 3G access, and they prefer using the online form because there's some issues sometimes with the mobile app. But again, if we limit the complexity of the questionnaire, it works well. And it's organized by paramedic services. That's where the data access group like York Simcoe, Halton, all of them have their own data, their own data access groups, but they dump their data into one big database. In my CP, we're using the online survey to kind of develop a mobile app. It's a unique use that we're using it right now. We're testing it, but it looks better. Actually, the survey version looks much better than the database version because it's less complicated. There's some issues with regards to flexibility of the database version, but the survey actually looks much better and when you look at the user interface.
Yeah, the MyCP is kind of something that's pretty complex. We've using it for something that's probably not what it's meant to be used for, but we've figured it out.
We're experimenting a bit.
We're figuring it out pretty well. Yeah, there's a lot of other projects in the department that use it. Health Tapestry uses REDCap a lot of different ways. Chart audits is one aspect. So from the EMR, just have the EMR up and then entering data into REDCap as your chart auditing. Also Tapestry, we have what's called a TAP app for Tapestry that it's kind of its own online data capture. And we've been taking the data out of that TAP app and pushing it into REDCap. That's another, so we're using REDCap as storage and cleaning and then export out for analysis. Taper is similar. Taper is a lot of different ways as well. You have data collection online like normally, also from telephone interviews, so the RA on the phone interviewing and entering data on REDCap, and then also use the mobile app offline, if needed offline, when the RAs visit participants at their homes. They have the app on their phone or a tablet and collecting data that way.
Don't you need Wi-Fi to use an app?
So what happens with the mobile app is on Wi-Fi, you download all the data for the project on the app, but then if you go offline, you can still enter data in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's stored in the device and it's encrypted there.
Okay.
And then once you're online, you sync it to the database. You
Yeah.
send it to the database.
Once you're back on Wi-Fi, yeah.
So it means you don't have to use patient's Wi-Fi. Yeah, yeah.
I thought another cool thing for CHAP when we're training the volunteers, we also have a practice database, so we can send them home with the username and password so they can go through and get used to the database before an actual running a session for the program. So I thought that was really cool that you mentioned. So they're not
Yeah.
going into like a real database with real data and
Right.
kind of messing around with it. So that was cool too.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Can you also upload, I know it said video and documents, can you upload like interview recordings and transcripts, like to store and manage all of that data?
You can upload them.
Mm-hmm.
Its usefulness, I'm not sure how useful it is to have like audio record, like you can just have that there and play off of it.
Yeah.
Or just to store it.
Yeah, you can usually if it depends on your purpose, but
Yeah.
but in terms of capability, it can be put into there. Like for example, if you're thinking upload the video and then have a specific questions for each person, like for each evaluator to look at the video and evaluate the video that they're seeing, then that's a possibility.
Okay, I'm thinking more for like 3 Wishes, because we have like 7 different sites that are all uploading, and we all have to like manage and be able to access all of it. So putting, like currently it's just in like a drop, like a similar to the DFM drive, like an encrypted drive. But because of that, we have like 17 different folders that are like all disorganized, which I feel like would be like just for organization
Oh, yeah.
purposes. Would this?
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. You can create a field that allows for upload of videos or files.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think that's most of the information beforehand, and I'll kind of walk through a demo of the program. So it's kind of lay out here. Really want to orient you guys to the user interface, project creation, how to build instruments or how to find instruments in the library, and how you do that online and how you can do it in the back end as well through Excel. We'll go through some examples of data entry, and then how you can look at that data with reports and the exporting of the data. Okay. Let's see if I can get this. All right, so I have here, so we're at that, as I mentioned earlier, the DFM has the kind of shared URL to DFMGP on McMaster.ca. So obviously I have an account here. So if you log in, this is your now, place where all your projects can be accessed. So I obviously have a bunch here for a lot of different projects. On this main page, you can find a lot of information for FAQ and training videos. You can also send, so anybody who has access to this DFMGP, you can also send files through what's Send It. So you can do data transfer. So you can send it to the emails of those individuals who have access to DFMGP, and then upload whatever files you want, and they can access that file from here. There is a limit to the size, 32 megabytes. So it probably wouldn't work too well for larger audio files in this case.
Do you happen to know offhand if that limit is set by REDCap, or if it's just something that like Chris has put it in at a practical level?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, not off that. I guess Chris would know. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just quickly, we'll go through a walkthrough. So create a new project, research knowledge skill builder test. Through here, we'll do just for fun, but you can also, what's the purpose? Usually for projects, we'll actually do a research, give them more information. Just for fun. We'll create an empty project, but what you can do, you can build a project. So I mentioned Tapestry. Health Tapestry has that TAP app, and all the data gets exported in a specific format, which is this ODM format. And that's been built for quite a long time to get it into format. This format can be directly imported from that TAP app online into REDCap, and all the data is pushed in. So that's one option. There's also templates. DFMGP, I think Chris removed all the templates. So this is the ICANN, or the ICANN ACP one. So this ICANN has their own separate instance, and they have already built in templates for projects. I haven't really used them, but there's already built-in templates. But I'll just create an empty project to start. Okay, so for those who have used REDCap, this might look a bit different, depending on what your user account has rights to do. This will look different. So my account on this has access to basically everything. So this will look different. I can do all project setups, modifying everything. But I'll walk through that. So project setup, what REDCap does is they have these 7 steps that they advise you to go through over the course of your development of your project. And at the end of the 7 steps, they want you to move it into production mode. So I'll kind of slightly go over this. So main project settings, so you can specify if you want surveys in the project, if you want to use longitudinal data collection, meaning that you have questionnaires that will be asked over at different periods of time.
Yeah, repeated, mostly for repeated measures.
Yeah. Under your design, so this is really the bedrock of everything. This is you're designing your questionnaires. So you can do 2 options, which I'll show you both, the online designer, or you can build through a data dictionary, which is through Excel.
Or you can go to the REDCap library to look at whatever questionnaires are already available.
Yeah. Further down, some more options. So if you want to use repeated questionnaires, if you want records in your project to be auto-numbered, or if you want to manually number or put names or whatever in your records, scheduling module, randomization is something that we also use for our projects.
Yeah, the advantage of randomization is like when you're recruiting participants, you recruit them directly to REDCap, and then after that, the REDCap assigns them to be either in the intervention or control group. So that's one advantage, and most of the statisticians in MAC actually recommend using the randomization module in REDCap.
Right. As a whole, there's a bunch of additional kind of minor ones that come up. It's, for the sake of time, won't get into those. User rights, so you can give other users access and restrict their access, like Rick was mentioning in data access groups. A lot of this is also on the side here, so you can quick links to specific parts, set up, adding data entry. I'll go into all this. This whole section is all the applications, so you can see your calendar alerts. You can view your reports, importing, the logging, so where Rick mentioned, where you can see where every user has been making changes, comments, access the rights, data quality rules, and then more information on the side. Okay, so I'll start just building, just from scratch, a project, so Online Designer. This is where you have your list of all your questionnaires. They call them instruments on REDCap. There's one already, has to be beginning with the record ID. Is always going to be the first spot. So this will be a questionnaire. My first instrument is what they call it. So we can either do this, like I mentioned, online like this, or we can do it through Excel. So if you want to add it, let's add a field. So REDCap has many different field options. So you have a text box, so there's text with dates or numbers, notes for more characters. You can do calculated fields, multiple choice, checkboxes, true, false. You have file uploads, like Rick mentioned. You can do a signature field where you can actually draw in a signature. Sliders, descriptive text, where there's it's just a text that displays, and then you have like you get a new section, so you can split up to visually make it look better. So we'll just start sort of a normal text box field, and this is where you would enter what the question is or whatever the field would want to be. So what is your favorite color? Well, color. Variable name, so each field needs to have a unique variable name.
It can also automatically do that for you, if you check that on the side. But sometimes they said that it's not recommended, but right. I use it plenty of times when I'm in a rush.
Then there's validation for each field type. So text boxes, it can be short text or numbers or dates. So you can have specific date formats. If you want it needs to be entered in an email needs to be entered, or integer number, etc. What is your favorite color? It's going to be text, so I shouldn't change that. But if I wanted to change this to, let's say, a multiple choice, what is your favorite color? And then here's where you enter the colors. You put each choice per line. Each choice needs to have a numeric value as well. So 1 blue, 2 red. So if they were to click blue, the number would actually be 1. The label is blue. The value that comes out is 1. You can change that to whatever you want. But you can't have 2 of the same values. It needs to be unique. More options on the side. You can make this required if you want the question to be answered. What happens is if they, for the data entry, if they miss this question, they'll get a pop-up when they try to exit saying you missed, a question has been missed, go back and check. Yeah.
And there's the identifier. If you click it as an identifier, once you export as a de-identified data, then that will not come up.
Yeah. And some more just alignment. You can put notes, field notes, so that text that'll come up beneath the field.
Like, for example, for names, if you want to specify the format, like last name first, then first name, so that would be like an example the small field that will come up.
Yeah. Action tags is something I think we can probably get into the next
Yeah, that's not.
skill builder session. So that comes up here. So this is the annotation, choose a color. So that's just built one field, one variable. You can continue making more. So that's one method of doing it, building a questionnaire or a survey individually like that. You can also build, as you mentioned, through this REDCap shared library. So they have a whole library full of surveys or questionnaires, a lot of verified or
Yeah.
surveys. There's tons here.
How do they do this with regard to permissions? Is this that these are all non-permission, like,
Yeah.
yeah, is that
Well,
right?
if you go
Okay.
onto them, it gives you the acknowledgements.
Right.
There are some that you need to actually get permission to use. Like
Mhm.
EQ5D is one. So
Yeah.
it's
So it will
EQ.
tell you that?
It will tell you
Right.
that,
D.
yeah.
And so will it not allow you to import until you've got permission, or do you have to?
Or is it? going
It
on
says,
screen?
for example, there
Yeah,
that it's
so
an
if you-
external library, you have to go
You have
to.
to. It's not built into REDCap, so EQ5D.
okay.
So you have to actually go to their website.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But everything that's in the library you can use.
Yeah.
I don't know, what can we do? Sleep. Look at sleep.
Great.
Pittsburgh sleep quality. So you can view. So we'll view this is what this Pittsburgh's. Oh, I gotta agree to this first.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. What was that? Just scroll down last bit. Okay. I gotta
Or you have to
scroll.
say that you read it.
Yeah.
Tricky.
So I can view what it looks like. So this is what the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index. And then yeah, it gives you you have.
Now we're all going to sleep because the lights went off.
It's okay. So yeah, so there. If we import that, I'll import that into the library. Do the same thing maybe.
Right.
Add. Okay. And now we have the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index in the library with already built-in fields. So ID, date. So everything that was in that PDF is in here. Okay, so I mentioned that. There's also the data dictionary. So I tend to, if there's going to be a lot of questionnaires or a lot of fields that need to be updated or created, I do it through Excel because it's much faster. So every change you make online, it makes a change in the data dictionary. And so then at any time you can download the data dictionary, which is an Excel file, CSV file. And so all those changes or all those fields that we made and imported are now in this is the data dictionary for REDCap. So each column has its own specific thing. So this is where all the variable field names, form name, section header field type. So the text boxes, or if there are multiple choice buttons. This is what the text is, the label, the choices. So it looks complex right here, but as you're working with it, it gets pretty simple. So you can build through this way instead. And it's like online, you can't really you can copy a field and move it, but in here you can actually like copy and paste. So it makes it much faster. So if I want to have these questions similar, or you want to have them twice somewhere, I don't know, for whatever reason, you can just copy and paste and then change the variable name. This would be second time point or whatever, if you don't want to use longitudinal data. And then change it this way instead of doing individually. So once all the changes are done, and you go back into REDCap and upload it, choose it, upload it, and it shows you, or pops up any issue, if there's any issues. Because if you have just one spelling mistake, and if you have we have branching logic, so that certain questions will only pop up if one question has a certain answer. If you have a spelling mistake in one of the variable names, it won't let you upload it, but it'll tell you there's a mistake on this line 2, K2 or whatever. And you have to go back and check it out. So you can't ever upload a data dictionary that's faulty, which is good.
The nice thing about the data dictionary is you can also share this with other people. For example, okay, they will ask you, what data do you collect in the database? If you added descriptions for each data, you can also see it in this data dictionary. So you can just share it with them and say, okay, this is the data we're collecting, and this is the description and the responses that are expected. And it's also good for you, for example, if you want to see what 1 means, what 2 means, because once you export the data of REDCap, for the multiple choices, it's all numerical. So you won't be able to see the responses. So the data dictionary also helps in that way.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So that's good. I have a project built, I believe, just with a few. Oh, I should have showed that one. Oh, well, that's okay. So they have a testing and demonstration survey, and I added. Maybe I'll add another one. Let's do that. So add a new record. Okay, so I guess I can go into data entry. So once you have your questionnaire built, or your survey, your instrument built, I always test it out constantly. So I have this survey or this questionnaire built. If I want to add a new record, there's already 3 records in here, but I'll add a record. This will look different depending on your user rights. If you're part of a data access group, etc. This is auto numbered. If it's not auto numbered, you can, instead of adding a new record, you'll have to type in the text first.
And if it's repeated measures, for example, if you're going to a participant record again and again, you can use the search query below to look at whoever you're looking for. You can search by any field, or you can search specifically by their names.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you're using longitudinal data, you have different time points. You'll have, once you go into this, you'll have this. There's only one time point for this, but you'll have, which I guess we'll show you next time, but you'll have different time points for when you're going to be entering this data. But anyways, for this one, I'll add a record into this survey. So this is what the survey or this questionnaire looks like. So let's add some data. Have you ever eaten nachos? If I said no, it's no. If I say yes, more questions popped up. So we have branching logic that was built into this. Spelling mistake there. Nice. I use eat nachos. False. True. There's more ones. Use it to treat asthma, cancer. Other. If you say other, you can come in and type something.
Arthritis.
Something. When did you last eat nachos? Different options. You traveled somewhere specifically? Yes. Farthest distance you've traveled. I think this case, if I wanted to put letters in, it wouldn't let me. Value type is not a number. Please try again. So I'll put 44 miles. They have a calculator to convert kilometers, which is interesting. So that's just an external.
Calculators in, or is that an inbuilt?
I think this is a link to this links to another site where you can convert.
I have a question about data storage then. Like, physically, where is this data being stored?
In our it depends on which database you're using, but for DFMGP, it's in our server here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're also using other servers from St. Joe's, right?
Yeah, those ones are at Sage, or like
Yeah.
in Hamilton too. At St. Joe's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they have very specific requirements for the database where you're building it. So.
Yeah. Before you become a consortium member, this all needs to be figured out.
And you can't use it for any other thing other than research. So it cannot be used for program, it cannot be used for testing, let's say, commercial surveys and so on. So they're very specific that it's going to be only used for research.
Yeah.
Does it matter which database you use? Like if you have collaborators both at DFM and St. Joe's, does it matter which one you use?
Depends on your project, I think.
Okay.
But in terms of access to it, probably not.
Yeah. So for St. Joe's, we started, I think, project started in collaboration with St. Joe's. So we go through their IT. So if you wanted to, when I joined on the projects, I needed to we had to get my user from them, and they run everything. Whereas for us, Chris runs REDCap for DFM. So go
So
through,
you can
go to
access
Chris.
from, like someone at St. Joe's could access the DFM one.
Yep,
Yeah.
just a URL, specific URL.
Yeah, it's just a specific URL, and also you need to ask Chris to add a user. So he is like the REDCap manager, so every time you're adding a user, you have to go through him. But if, for example, you're going to do a bulk number of participants, which I do all the time for CHAP, so I give him a bulk number of users and he uploads it. There's a format in Excel spreadsheet that you can just upload a bunch of people there.
Yeah.
And they individually receive their emails asking them for to create their passwords.
So the SOP outlines, just if you're interested, the process and in consultation with Steve and Chris and how we go through that to set it all up.
Okay.
Mhm.
There's a couple more examples of different field types. So there's a bar, so you can change the numbers on the bottom. It's 100. Check boxes, so you can do multiple different answers. This is a matrix, so that you have the same options for a variety of different questions.
By the way, for the visual analog scale, just based on experience, using your finger to maneuver that is not as easy. Using this mouse is fine. If you're using a tablet for it, we've received some complaints that it skips.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know if it's possible to reorient it so that it's
Yes.
horizontal instead
Yep.
of vertical.
Yeah, you can, yeah. Okay, there's a text box. Not just changed your life. They are my life. And then, so you have status for data entry for that specific questionnaire. So if it's incomplete or it's unverified, or if it's complete. So I'll just save and exit. And then, so we have 4 records in here now. So you can go to your record status dashboard, so you can see this each record, and to see
If it's completed.
so these were completed, so it's green. If they were incomplete, it'd be red, etc. And then you have all the different questionnaires, so you can kind of see from looking above to see how all the data is looking in that sense.
Mhm.
I have a question about the outward-facing survey then. Is it intended primarily for research assistants to be entering the data as opposed to a more direct line to your respondent, like the respondent to have access to these interfaces?
I think it's intended for both. So it depends on your project. If you're doing like online surveys, for example, volunteers, we want to know what their perceptions are. So we can do an online survey and then they can self-complete it.
Does it look much different from this?
Yeah. So what you can turn this into a survey. If I enabled survey settings and make this into a survey, and it'll just look very similar and it'll be sent as a survey to an email.
The survey is much cleaner than this because the thing is, for the database version, you can see all the
Yeah.
this on the side, which is
Yeah.
all the controls. In the survey, it's just the questions and responses. So
Yeah.
it's much cleaner. It's much nicer to look at. It's less confusing for people to use. But again, you don't have the ability to add participants and so on. It's just individual when you go into through the survey.
Incompletion and things like that, or your
Yes.
response doesn't fit our data format, something?
It's exactly the same thing, but yeah, the only difference is how it looks. And also in terms of how it looks for REDCap, it's easy. That's the survey.
Yeah.
Or you can change the font, you can make it bigger, you can change the color and everything. When you print it, it will not carry over. It's different. The printout is very limited, so that's one thing. But in terms of what you see in the database itself, it's fine. It's also the same thing when you look at what you use in terms of online, what you see online and what you see in the app. The app is just like a very straightforward thing. You don't see like any changes. If you change the font and everything, it won't appear in the app.
Yeah.
When you were filling out the survey before you submitted, it looked like a participant could save what they've done without submitting it. Is that true?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can do half of it and then save it for later?
Yeah.
That's the same thing with the survey also, especially if you want to have it secure to the specific person's email. If they click save and complete later, then they receive a link to continue again in their email.
Yeah. But we can go through surveys next one.
When you, this goes back a little bit, when you talked about the validation on the responses, there was a drop down that had a set list. Is it possible to write in your own validation?
No.
No. So if you had another sort of like unique format or something.
Yeah, the
Like
validation is limited to whatever format they have there.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's built in.
It's built in.
Okay, so we have some data there. I'll show you some reports so you can, through different methods, you can actually view the stats. So we have that specific instrument. You can view it visually. We had, for this question, every nachos, 3 people said yes, 1 said no for each question. Also build reports, which is what you usually do. You can build a custom report. Nachos report. Specific, so this is more data, so you can see who can see this report, if they can access or edit it. This will give you a list of all your fields that you have in your project. So if I want to see who chose, I'll look at the answers to who chose cheese. And you can filter it, live filter, sort it. But for now, I'll just do that one question. So you can see record 1, record 2, and you can export that out. If you do the whole survey, I'll just throw all of the questions on there. So you have all the questions for that questionnaire. Filter it by only people who said when did the last eat nachos in the last month, and so it would only whoever said they eat nachos in the last month. Well, nobody said that, I guess. But it would only show their data on here.
Yeah.
So it queried all 4 records and returned 0. And then you can export the data out to Excel. So this is the raw data, like the numbers that I mentioned. You can also export it as the labels. So it's not the numbers, it's the labels. And to the stats software, SPSS, SASR.
Yep.
And then this is where you can remove those identifiers. You can make that record ID. You can hash it.
What does that mean?
So make it so you can't recognize what it is.
Okay.
Just like
Like it just puts it in X's or something?
yeah, a bunch of different characters, I think. Etc. Remove unvalidated text fields. Yeah, and so it exports it out into whatever you want, and from there you can move on exporting data. I think that's basically everything. And then from on the side, you can access your reports anytime, edit, add. Yeah, I think for the sake of time, we'll end that there.
Yeah. So if you have any questions or any suggestions or things that you want to learn for the next session, that would be, you can do it in the evaluation, or you can ask us here.
Yeah, so we also have a list here of all the resources that you could go to if you want to learn more. There is more on, like I mentioned that there was some in REDCap. Once you log in, you can find them there too.
And every part of the development, you can actually just look at the video, and they're very easy to follow.
Yeah, they have lots of videos, training videos that you can watch. Yeah. And yeah. If you have any other questions?
Just generally the process, if someone wanted to start using it, I know there's an SOP, but do they go to you to start?
Yeah, and the SOP outlines just different roles, like how Steve can help I can help initiate, get it going, and then Steve can have a role as needed in the team. And also, we have to link to Chris, as we know he's the sort of gatekeeper for the program. Mhm. Yes. So what about thinking about next session? And we've had a nice overview of that simple survey and exporting and reporting. What would people like to know more about,
Other than nachos.
other than nachos?
Maybe something about how to organize your the online designer part while thinking about the kind of data that you have to export. So like thinking farther down the line, like data analysis and how it's going to come out in Excel and how you can visualize it, like as you're creating the survey rather than have to go back and fix it.
Right.
If possible.
Okay.
Maybe how to organize like a large project with different like mini projects or moving pieces or different methodologies and what that looks like. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like even just have a look at what a bigger scale project would look like as a sort of overview, since that would be, this represents that kind of small project zone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there a map in behind, you know, the sort of relationships map on it for an Access database? Where you can see all the forms and fields?
There's the only thing, there's what's called a Codebook.
The data dictionary, I think, is one thing.
It's sort of flat.
Yeah,
It's
it's,
flat, the data.
yeah, so the Codebook is as well, just the Codebook, so,
Maybe we could look at that next.
yeah.
Can you upload an NVIDIA file into REDCap?
So really, I guess the limit would be for quantitative. Actually, I did wonder that, but now looking at it, I see it's not really for mixed methods, I'm gathering. Like, I don't think there's a way that you can integrate qualitative, other kinds of interviews or focus groups. I think it's strictly for quantitative data management. However, I don't know if, in terms of text fields and how you deal with your open-ended questions, it's probably just the same as you do in SPSS or Excel, that you then have to pull that out and analyze separately.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah, importing data it's basically just through Excel or through that ODM, what I mentioned. It's a bit more complex.
But just uploading PDFs, pictures, videos, there's an upload field. But
Yeah.
not specifically in Vivo. Yeah.
Can I just ask about the pre-formatted survey? So depending on whether if you're in the small DFM one, small project one, or the large project one, you can access the same
The same
resource,
library,
yeah.
yeah.
And what about if we say like there'll be some Canadian like useful Canadian demographics that map to the Stats Canada categories and things? Is there some way where you can access them no matter whether it's you go through a large project unique or whether you're using DFM? Is there some way that we could have those as a department resource, and like primary care ones that we might have found useful that aren't in their standard library?
So you mean outside of that library?
So outside of their standard library, I'm thinking
Yeah.
like they probably don't have the demographics
Yeah,
that map to
yeah.
Stats Canada demographics, stuff like that. Is there you think about it for next time, but I was thinking,
Yeah.
in terms of department resource.
Right.
Can as
Mhm.
consortium members, could we contribute to that library?
I think so.
Yeah,
Mini
yeah,
library?
yeah.
Yeah.
That could be linked to we've got a database that we've developed of tools that we've used and with the references and who it's with the populations it's validated in and whether you need to pay for it or not. We've got that database, and I wonder if we could somehow link it with
Right.
that.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
almost like, so can we create a local library?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And
Rather
then-
than people having to redo it.
Right, which may not be integrated with that, but
Yeah.
it's something we can go in and pull in.
Just draw
Yeah.
from.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if we link it with those ones where we try and
Yes.
record for other people.
Yeah.
We can create our own files of
Yeah.
each one. Like it would be like a REDCap questionnaires. Like for example, within our drive, we can download the questionnaires for ourselves and then upload which ones we want to use.
Yeah.
But if I don't know if we can have it, because once we put it up there, everybody has access to it. But if we want to restrict access just to us, we can download like specific files into our folder, whatever, and then in our shared drive, the FM research drive, and we can pick which folders that we want to upload in our questionnaires.
It's like Michelle's, there's a demographics module, and I was thinking, I bet that'll be
Yeah.
the Stats
Right.
Canada one. But how do we share that?
Yeah, okay. We can use that with, because we have the survey catalog as well, so
Mhm.
we can link to that. Okay.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right,
That's
so we will get that together for next month and hope everybody can join us again. Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.